Who is the most underrated character of every single type? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Genshin Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. As usual, couple disclaimers. Number one, I'm only going to be rating the characters that I have personally built and tested, which admittedly is not all of them. I'll let you know which ones I haven't built yet. And number two, I'm going to be comparing versus what I perceive as the community perception of a character. That community perception may be right or wrong. You are going to have a different community perception, like what you think the community rates the character as, because there's the casual community, there's the hardcore community, there's my in particular community, there's the Hoyo Lab community, the Twitter community. All of them are going to have different perceptions of the characters, and I'm going to check what my general perception is versus my actual personal testing. So starting off with Electro, I haven't yet built Lisa, and I think I've built all the other ones yet, although I haven't fully tested Kujosara because I don't have her C6, and she kind of needs her C6 to really be worth testing. I also haven't built Dory. I think that's all. But looking at these, I don't think Fischl is underrated. I don't think Kuki is underrated. I don't think Raiden is underrated. I think Yaimiko has pretty much fixed her perception. I'm not sure what the general consensus is on Razor these days, because there's the two communities, right? Those who know about Burgeon Razor with Bennett C6 and using Nahida Singcho in, the Burgeon comp, which is Jeff named Thundering Fury. So there's those who know about it and agree that it's pretty strong, or those that don't know about it. So I don't think he's underrated, at least among those who know about it. I think Keqing is pretty fairly rated. It's either Beta or Sino. I tend to think it's Sino. I think people still think Sino is pretty mid. It's true that he has a weakness in multi-wave content, but basically, other than multi-wave content, like where there's multiple low HP waves, I think he's actually really good. And other characters like Ayaka also have that same sort of weakness. So I think I'm gonna go with Sino. He is my pick for my most underrated Electro. On to Pyro. Now I haven't yet built Amber, I haven't yet built Yanfei, and I haven't yet built Jin Yam. So the rest I have built and tested. It's definitely not Hu Tao. I think people are right on the money with Dea. I think people generally have the right idea about Toma, about Linny as well. Yoimiya is it's possible that Yoimiya is a little bit underrated. We'll leave that as a possibility. It's definitely not Bennett. It's very possibly Klee. I don't think it's Diluc. I don't think it's Shangling. So it's either Yoimiya or Klee. Because on one hand, Yoimiya is stronger than a lot of people say, but then again, so is Klee. I do think Klee is overall probably the better character than Yoimiya. I think they're both pretty underrated, or at least they're both pretty similarly underrated. I think people underrate how good Yoimiya is without a shielder and to just utilize a hyper comp with Yelan, Bennett, Kazuha. And I think people really underestimate just how much damage Klee does. So I'm going to call it a draw for these two between Yoimiya and Klee. I've tested them both substantially, and I think both of them are really, really good. I do think that, yeah, they're not quite the same level as Hu Tao, but I do think that people overblow how bad they are. And at least versus the other Pyro characters that I've tested anyways. Sure, it might be one of the other ones that I haven't tested, but that's what I think for these. For Hydro, I haven't tested Mona because I haven't lost my 50-50 to her yet. And is that the only one? I haven't fully built Child on my account, so I guess I'll put him up here as well. But I don't think he's underrated anyways. So Nilou, it's possible that she is a little bit underrated, especially her single target performance. I think people really downplay her ability for single target performance. I definitely don't think people underrate Novelette. I think people correctly rate him extremely good. Hydro Traveler, people correctly rate them extremely bad. I think Yelan is rated quite fairly. It could be Candace for sure, but I think people realize that she's good in Nilou teams, and that's pretty much the only place, aside from maybe C6, some things you can do, that she's really, really good. I think people for the most part correctly rate Ayato. I don't think people underrate Kokomi. I definitely don't think people underrate Singcho, and I don't think people underrate Barbara, similar to Candace. This is tough. This is really, really tough, dude. Hydra is just such a good element, because I think people know how strong Nilou is. There's an aspect of her that they underrate, which is how good she is in single target when you're utilizing Singcho or Yelan. But to say that she's underrated as a whole seems like quite a stretch. I don't think I can get behind saying that. Could I say that Candace is underrated? It's kind of similar to Burgeon Razor, right? Whereas if you know Burgeon Razor is a thing and you've seen it and you do it, then you realize it's good. And same with Candace. If you played Candace in a Nilou team with Yao Yao infusing her normal attacks as Hydra to proc blooms, you know that Candace is a great character in that team. But it's still like, it's tough to say any of the Hydra characters are underrated. You could call it Barbara. She's really, really good in Nilou teams as well, and she has some use outside of Nilou teams. I would accept Barbara or Candace, I think. I think both of them are kind of labeled as kind of trashy characters, but both of them are actually pretty good, pretty solid, especially in Nilou teams, but also other, like, maybe I'll call a draw between Barbara and Candace. I think they're about the same power level as well. For Cryo, who have I not built? I've not built Aloy. I've not yet built Mika. I'm working on it right now. And I have not built Fremine. So I'm working on those 3 right now. So out of these, who is the most underrated? Could definitely be Chongyun. Could be Kaya. I don't think it's Chi-Chi. I think people are correctly rate Wriothesley right now. I don't think it's Diona. I don't even think it's Layla. It could be Shenhe, but I think people realize that she is really strong. I definitely don't think it's Ayaka. I don't think it's Eula. I don't think it's Ganyu. I don't think it's Rosaria. I think people generally rate Kaya correctly. It might be either Chongyun. I think it's Chongyun. Yeah, I think people most likely underrate Chongyun. I just made a video about him. I called him the most disrespected Genshin character. Obviously, I'm being facetious. I think there's plenty of disrespected Genshin characters that you could make the argument for being the most. But I think there's definitely an argument to be made that Chongyun is the most underrated crowd character because he really is pretty much just as good as Rosaria and Kaya, but people tend to think that he's quite bad. So I'm going to go with Chongyun for Cryo. For Anemo, who have I not built yet? Not built Heizo, not built Sayu, and I've not built Zhao because I don't have him yet. I think that's all. In terms of underrated, I don't think Sucrose is underrated. I don't think Kazuha. Farazan, I think people realize how good she is at C6. I think people, what they underrate about Farazan is the possibility of actually getting her to C6 because people seem to see a C6 Farazan as something you shouldn't even consider when evaluating the character. But I don't know if that's really calling her underrated. I don't think Lynette is underrated. I don't think, is Anemo MC underrated? I'm not sure. Maybe I haven't tested Anemo MC quite enough to really have a strong opinion. I should do that though. I don't think Wanderer is underrated. Maybe people, like some people call him mid. I think the thing is, as with all hyper carries, if you don't have good investment and good teams, your hyper carry is not going to perform well. So, but I don't think that's a thing uniquely specific to him. I think for the most part, he's correctly rated. So it's either Jean or Venti. I think it very well might be Venti, but I think overall there are a lot of Spiral Abyss 12s where you can't really utilize him that well. So it could be Jean, could be Venti. They're both like polar opposites. Like she is a way better character in single target and he is a way better character in spread out AoE. And how good they are in those specific circumstances is underrated, I think. So I think both of them are underrated. I'm going to call it a draw between these two. Maybe you think that's a cop-out. Let me know which one you think in the comments. For Geo, this is going to be my worst offender in terms of characters I haven't built. I don't have Ito. I don't have Albedo. I haven't built Noelle. I haven't built Goro. And I haven't built Geo Traveler. Yikes. Really need to get on my Geo game. And out of these 3, I don't know that any of them are underrated. I still see a lot of people online saying Zhongli is mid or unnecessary or all these different things. So I think I'm going to go with Zhongli. I think he is a comfort pick to be sure, but there are teams where he is best in slot, and there are teams where he's not that much of a damage loss considering the comfort you get back, especially when there's very high aggressive enemies. I think that he's really underrated for that. And finally, for Dendro. Who have I not built? I've built all the Dendro characters because they've all come out during my channel. So pretty much anyways. So who is underrated? Well, it's definitely not Nahida. It's not Alhaitham. I don't think Tainari is underrated. I think he's rated properly. People think he's pretty good. Maybe Kale. I don't think it's Yayo. People have a pretty high opinion of Yayo. I don't think it's Baiju. Like, I think, well, it's possible that it's Baiju. People, like, underrated people don't understand. It doesn't mean good or bad. Like, I'm not saying that these are the best, all these underrated characters. I'm not saying that these are the best characters. I'm saying that people have a perception of them that is lower than what I think they actually are. And Baiju might be one of those characters. I think people underestimate how good he is as an on-field Hyperbloom driver, very close to Nahida in terms of that specific capacity, and how like powerful of an option is. He's about to get buffed as well, most likely with the Archon. That doesn't, I think people will probably have the correct perception of him after that, but maybe for some of the wrong reasons. I think he's a contender. I don't think it's Kave. I think Kave really is not that great. It could very well be Kirara. I think people underestimate how well she performs in Aggravate teams and in Nilou teams. Both of which she performs very, very similarly to Yao Yao. Like very, very similarly. Basically, Yao Yao and Candice go together for Nilou, whereas Kirara and Barbara work really well for Nilou. And Aggravate, both of them have their pros and cons. Like Kirara, it's a very quick swap team, so it's very easily to switch back to her and apply Dendro to make sure you always have Quicken. So even if you don't have her C4 for off-field Dendro application, her skill is still has some AoE, so it's very easy to apply Quicken, or you can hold skill to apply Quicken to everybody. So it's very possible that Kirara is the underrated character. It is possible as well that it's Kale, because she also is arguably part of the ceiling for Nilou teams, and she's good in aggravate. If you consider her having elegy of the end, then she's actually quite good in aggravate, but usually she competes it's pretty tough competition versus Kirara and Yao Yao as being a defense. You don't lose that much damage to get a defensive option. So between Kale, Kirara, and Baiju, I'm gonna go with Baiju. I think people underrate how powerful he is, how comfy he is, how good he is, and people don't consider like his on-field presence in those Hyper Bloom Burgeon teams, and how much he does open up certain team comps and allow for much more comfier play for Burgeon, for just a number of different comps. Because he can be a defensive Dendro utility, he is often just the best choice for the Dendro in a team. It's basically like either Nahida or Baiju as like a Dendro unit on the team, and I think often it really is Baiju. So I think I'll go with him. Let me know who you agree or disagree with. This is the final list right here. You also have the bonus of seeing who I haven't built yet. Let me know in the comments who you think I should build next, just so you know. I'm currently building my Mika, and then of course I'll be building Farina when she comes out. He'll probably be the last character I build during this patch, and then next patch I'm going to be focusing on Geo. So I'm going to be building Goro, I'm going to be building Noelle, and I'm going to be pre-farming for Ito and Albedo because they're probably coming at some point soon. But let me know who else you think I should build, who else should be on the docket. I want to build all the characters right. That's the point of the channel, and we will definitely get to everybody, and I'm really excited for it. Please consider subscribing if you want to see more. If you want to see the more casual side of me, check out my other channel, The Jello Show. We have my wife's Risley and Eventi wishes over here. I have new video on Topaz that just came out. It's doing really well, and so I'm covering Star Rail, casual Genshin. I'm going to be covering Weathering Waves, Pokemon, a bunch of other different games on here as well. So subscribe if you want to see that. Feel free to join our Discord. Check out my Patreon if you want to support me and my family. And if you don't want to do any of that, that is totally fine. Just watching the video has been more than enough. Thanks so much. Bye for now.